And there we are. So yeah, we're not continuing with the character model that we left off with last week quite yet. We're probably gonna do that on Thursday, or maybe we'll do this entire week in the theme of. Hold on, my like phone stand is literally breaking apart at the seams. We might just push that process as a whole to next week, depending on how much we get done today and whether or not I want to do same thing with like inventory stuff on stream this Thursday as well. But I decided that this might be a fun thing to stream because it's a pretty big change to the game, and I did a poll on the Discord. Most people seemed 1,000% on board with me doing this for today's stream. So I think it had like it only had like 8 votes or something like that. But yeah, 8 votes, 1 for rigging, 1 for texturing, and then 6 for inventory drama. I might have also like labeled these in a slightly like steering way to be 100% like frank with you. Not intentionally, but looking at it, like it says rigging, texturing, or inventory drama. Of course, inventory drama is a little bit more inviting to click on. But the idea being is over the past couple of months, I did a inventory series on the channel, and then I did a inventory follow-up series, which is now finished. The full thing will go up, I think, early next week, late next week, something like that. Sometime next week, the full render of it will go up. All the individual parts are already up. So we've been developing this inventory system for a while now. And initially it was just a curiosity for me to want to make something like that, as well as thinking, that's probably something that a lot of people are going to want, so it's good content. That kind of grew into, hey, maybe I can just like make a good, robust enough system for any like future games I want to make. If I want to make like game jam games, whatever, I'll have this inventory system just like right there to use. And then some people started using my project files into their own projects, not just for like learning material purposes, or well, still for learning projects, but like not just to study my project, but to like migrate it over. And that really resulted in a couple of issues. Mainly that being some of the functionality exists within the game mode class, and you either have to copy out all those functions into your own game mode class, or you need to reparent your game mode class to mine. But that can still result into like some conflicting stuff, because if you have another project that also does that, you now have 2 game mode classes that both need to have like implementations, and that's going to be conflicting. So that actually ended up being like not a great way to do it, as far as like making it a usable thing for people to use. So I decided, you know what, it might be also an interesting thing for me to dive in and rewrite this thing, so that it has like everything a little bit more simplified, a little bit more optimized. Some of the things that I said I'm not going to do within this series, like copying over metadata anytime you move it between inventory, so that it references the inventory that it's in as its outer object, that kind of thing. Implement all that stuff and set up it as a plugin. So that's what I did over the last like week and a half. Anytime I had some free time, I think I spent about like 10 hours in total, like rewriting it and testing it and whatever. And that results in us now in this project. I wrote it in a different project. I just imported it in here. But we have the inventory plugin loaded into Dark Reflection now, which it's still weird that the game now has a name, right? It's kind of weird that it has a name. But it has some content, which is just some example UI stuff, which also has like a bunch of the functionality that I coded for it in the inventory course itself. So if we go into it's just item display, actually I made a separate inventory slot for it. So we can check here, we have the move item function that I made in its entirety, and that I took out the left and right click functionality because I don't think I'm going to be using that, and this is for all intents and purposes, a like starting point for anybody who's going to be using the plugin aside from myself. And this is probably like good enough. And if you want to have like that split stack function, let's see, I decided not to implement that much. So we have an inventory subsystem object here, which has just a handful of functions. It has this drag drop item widget, because again, I can't store that on the player character anymore, since of course the player character can be anything. It needs to be its own self-contained plugin. So anything that needed to work with like the player character, which was another like conflicting issue obviously, or with the game mode, that's just been moved to the inventory subsystem. And aside from that, everything is more or less the same way, aside from the fact that it's now mostly written in C++. So that's the backstory on the plugin. Now that it is in this project, I do want to test out how it works in practice. I did a lot of bug testing, a lot of crashes over the last week. I think I've squashed all the bugs. I think so. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But there's no better way to test this than to just throw it into the actual game and start working with it, and then I'll run into some issues. And as I get more confident in implementing this into my own project and maybe expanding a little bit on what's already there now, eventually I will publish this for sale as well, but not before I have it a little bit more battle tested and maybe expanded. So that's in real short, within like 5 minutes, explained what is going on here. So let's get into all that. I think we're going to want to set up the inventory component in C++ just in case we need it at any point in our C++ code. So we have our character project, action RPG character, whatever, in here somewhere. And I think I have a component subregion here. I do. So let's just add it in here somewhere. These are all other stuff. I guess it's just badly organized. Okay. Let's do U property, edit anywhere, blueprint, read only, that's fine. Category will be inventory, allow private access, sure. And then this will be the class, don't want that tab there, class U inventory, components, pointer, thingamajig. Why is it giving me all these errors actually? Something's a little weird. That's slightly worrying, but we'll figure that out in a moment. Where do I initialize all my components? Here, let's just do it there then. Inventory, yes. I feel like I'm messing up somewhere, but I don't think I am. Because this also, we'll just compile in a moment and see. Inventory equals create default subobject. Yeah, it doesn't even try like the component. Hell no. U inventory components. It doesn't recognize the inventory variable. Yeah, something's going a little weird with this. Oh, it's the allow private access thing. There we go. Allow private access within its own parentheses within the parentheses of the U property. So that should now fix that. Yeah, okay. That's really all there is to that. So now that we have that in there, let's just real quick recompile, because otherwise live coding always messes with adding new values, new variables and stuff. And if I'm going to be coding stuff around it, I don't want that to break. So let's just Okay. Immediately we have some errors. Let's see. Oh, did it just include the wrong include file? It includes the inventory component, which is like a very long include here, but that should be correct, right? It's plugins, inventory, source. Can I just include? Yeah, no. This is the correct include for it. What's going wrong there? It's annoying that it is an issue within character gen.cpp because I can't see what the issue is there, right? I mean, I can. But I don't know what any of these macros actually mean. So that is potentially an issue. I'm guessing this might be... Yeah, so what I'm thinking, actually, is that it is an issue with the modules that need to be included in my source directory. So in my actual build file somewhere in here. I might need to, in the public or private dependency modules, I'm going to do it in public because why not? I might need to include the inventory because otherwise it doesn't know that that's a thing that it needs to load in. And now that I'm actually referencing C++ code, I think it needs that. That might be the issue. So far, so good. Needs to compile a lot of extra stuff again for some reason. That's slightly worrying. I guess it needs to compile everything that references any of this stuff since I changed it. But that seems to have solved the issue. So it was a linking issue, I think, to do with it not being able to get that module properly or whatever. So please do start up Unreal. Thank you. How's everybody doing? There's not a lot of people hanging out yet. But for the people who have shown up already, WPP item inventory slot, I don't really care. We can skip restoring them. I didn't even change anything about it, I don't think. Yeah, I moved it around a node. Well, that's about it. Yeah, so now we should have on our character a normal inventory component. I will make like a equipment component and stuff. I don't know that we'll do that as part of the plugin, because that seems like rather specific in a lot of ways. But we have the inventory now, right? So at this point, it's honestly as easy as just changing some of the widgets that we already have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out where the hell I put those widgets in the first place. I think it's surely it's in UI. We have... It's actually quite nice because we have a bunch of stuff here in the checkmark menu with like all these buttons, and then all this empty space. That empty space can now just display your inventory. Right? That's fantastic. There's a slight error in the title. Is there? Oh, there's the capital M. I just noticed. Yeah. Oh, there's also a missing E. Yeah, the title is quite fucked, isn't it? Let me see if I can change it from OBS. I don't know if I can. I think I need to go and open YouTube for that. Turn off monetization? Hell no. Can I just like select stream? No. Add stream marker? Wait, what does that do? Delay ads. Oh, I can manually insert ads from OBS. Hell yeah. No, I need to do that on YouTube. So I'm going to do that though. So just give me a moment and we'll get that sorted out. Let's see. Some guy complaining on my Unreal Basics course that I'm not setting any like custom collision shit up. Dude. YouTube's interface is so fucked. Anyway, yeah, here I can change. Yeah, let's just implementing. Oh, spellcheck doesn't even know implementing. I think I spelled it correctly now without any typos. Anyway, yeah, that should fix it now. Now, as I was saying, we have a lot of room here anyway to like put in our inventory to begin with. So what I'm thinking is we put the inventory there, and then for the normal pause menu, like we, okay, that game time probably should be in the vertical box at the top, and then like align to the center. We just take this vertical box and kind of like move it over here, and then maybe, frankly, even change. This is all temporary stuff anyway, right? But maybe even change like some of this padding. Oh, hold on. No, it's just because the vertical box itself, like it. Yeah, there we go. If we just do that, maybe a little bit more like that. Scale it up this way. We can very easily just add a like an item grid to this entire thing. So let's take that and then put it like over here-ish. Make that full screen. Just found your channel and you're live. Amazing. Welcome. Welcome. I'm happy to have been live when you found me. So yeah, now the only thing we need to do at this point for all that would be going back into here somewhere, getting that item grid, and set inventory components. Promote a variable, player inventory. We'll expose that on spawn, which means it needs to be instance editable. And yeah, that's kind of everything we need to do there, I think. So now that we have our pause menu, and this is going to need to exist in the in this menu as well. So actually, let's just, I think we can just straight up like copy paste that in here. We'll need to position it right over there, but that's kind of fine. It's not exactly in the same place, but give me a break. And then somewhere in here, let's just add a new thing to our sequence nodes here, because there's quite enough going on. And then one of these needs to be made into a variable, which we set to expose on spawn and instance editable. Fantastic. So as easily as that, we should now, in theory, go into our third-person character, be able to add that stuff. If I can find where I actually add those things. Okay, there we go. Checkpoint menu, refresh nodes, there we go. Put in the player inventory into both of these, and now it should display my inventory when I pause, which is enter. Okay. Doesn't display... This is not even an inventory issue. This is just a where is this thing issue. Yeah, that's kind of weird. If I'm full screen, does it still do that? No, if I'm full screen, so it's just a scaling thing. So the issue is just that I set this to full screen. I just need to do it like this, I believe. No, for this as well. This anchoring stuff always confuses me because it doesn't seem like consistent with how it fucks up. It always just fucks up, but it doesn't seem to be consistent with how. But this seems pretty good. The continue thing here isn't properly aligned, but who cares? Then we have our inventory here on the right side. Obviously, it's displaying no inventory at the moment because the inventory doesn't have any size. So let's just give him like 50 item slots or something like that. I don't know what we're going to actually do with that in the game, but that should now give me 50 item slots, which all are technically like selectable. And that means we just straight up kind of work, doesn't it? So let's go into the persistence world. Because the thing that I'm worried about most, and this is why I thought it might be fun to do this live on stream, is I know everything works. I know even saving and loading works. The inventory gets saved to a separate save file so that it doesn't interfere with anything to do with your normal save logic or whatever. It just gets the same name as your normal saves, just with the word inventory after it. So you can just like plug in your exact same, like multiple save files, whatever. It all works. What I haven't tried yet is how it works with streaming levels. It should work. It should save the level that you're inside. And I think actually even like the actual display names of the objects are unique even between different levels. So it shouldn't load like one inventory into the other or whatever. But that's a thing that I haven't been able to test yet because I haven't actually had this in a real project file, only in like a almost like quarantined test like scenario. So that's the thing that's worrying me most at the moment. And we're gonna see how it actually how it works, or rather how it probably doesn't work. So I think what we should do is in blueprints, I'm gonna make a chest because that's just the easiest way to do this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna like put an item into that chest, leave the room, come back and see whether or not both my inventory and the chest's inventory are good to go. Like if they're still consistent. Did I dupe any items? Did I lose any items? I think that's the most logical way to do this. So BP chest. And then this is a fantastic question. How are we going to actually set this up easily? For now, I'm just going to do this with a... Let's just do this with like a sphere collision. Just because, again, I just want to... Hello? Oh, just lagging. Oh, that's real big. That's real big. Let's 500, 560, 650, same thing. On begin overlap, other actor is equal to player pawn. We get a gate. Open the gates. And overlap. Other actor is equal to player pawn again. And that'll just close the gate. This is kind of nice about Blueprint, that it just has these like gate macros just ready to go. And then whenever I could also just like enable and disable the player input, because what we're going to be doing is I will just put in a like input action for, I don't fucking know. Open menu, that might conflict. Let's do jump. But then we probably do need to actually, yeah, I don't know if this is gonna work. But if it does, that'll be good. So we have, let's create widgets. I think I already have a chest widget. There we go. Takes in an inventory component and a chest component. This needs to have, of course, an inventory component of its own. Which we can just put in there, and then the inventory component will also have like 10, and it will construct with, I need to create an item. Where are we going to put those? I'm just going to be lazy and watch you. You're welcome to do so. You're always welcome to do so. That's what I do all day long when I'm not streaming. I'm not really used to Unreal 5, switching from Unity and thinking, should I go solo dev, deal with C++, Blueprint enough? It kind of depends. For the most part, I think if you are already used to Unity, you're used to scripting in C#, right? So the C++ might actually not be as bad as you might think it is, because the way Unreal builds like all the missing functionality that C++ usually doesn't have, like a garbage collector and like a reflection system and that kind of stuff. Unreal builds all that for you. So in the end, like there's a couple of syntax differences. For instance, like one of the things that ends up being a little bit annoying sometimes is C++ doesn't have like a built-in like specific syntax for a for each loop. You can still loop over an array, don't get me wrong, but it's written like this, right? It's just for actor pointer, actor in overlapping actors, we do this, instead of having a specific like declaration for a for each loop, which gets a little bit annoying. And you're working probably a little bit more with pointers, but again, since you're working within the confines of Unreal Engine, like sometimes a function spits out a pointer, and sometimes it spits out an object, and sometimes it spits out a reference, and if you try to assign that to something that it doesn't match with, it's just not going to compile, it's going to scream at you, and you just change it, right? You don't have to like make any architectural decisions on whether to use pointers or references for the most part, because you just follow along with what the engine gives you. So all that C++y stuff usually actually ends up not being that big a deal. And if you're already used to scripting in C#, you'll probably be fine doing C++. That said, Blueprint by itself can make full games. There's certain things that you just simply cannot do in Blueprint because Epic decided, hey, this is probably something that a programmer should deal with and not a designer, and Blueprint is meant to be used mostly by designers, not by full programmers. But it's more powerful than that. You can program full games in it. Anyway, so let's just make a new folder for this, right? So new folder. Let's just do items. For now, that'll be fine. So for example, one of the things that you, for some reason, just cannot make in Blueprint, there isn't plugin actually to enable you to do this in Blueprint. And that's the thing. If it's a thing that happens a lot and people get annoyed by it, someone will just make a plugin that just takes a function, exposes it to Blueprint, and uploads that as a plugin to the Unreal Marketplace. So that you can do that. But he has subsystems, right? These are like independent little modules as you can write code in that are easy to get in any place in your game. For some reason, Blueprint doesn't allow you to make these. This is a C++ only thing. But again, there is a plugin that just allows you to make those anyway. So it's like if you want to stick with mostly Blueprint, you definitely like 1000% can. Let me make just data asset. There we go. Item. We'll just call this test item 1. Name will be test item. The inventory icon will be fucking skulls. 100 coins, I don't know. Max stack size. Let's add that to 57, because why not? We only have the default metadata, so don't need to worry about that. And then we'll make test item 2, which will be marked as such. And then we just like give that, I don't know, which will be funny. Maybe don't actually use the bad blueprint one for that. That would be, I'll just scroll through, see if there's any like fun images. I don't know why I'm even bothering with this, to be honest with you. It's all for testing purposes anyway. Yeah, let's just use one of these texture maps. That's fine. It's a 4K texture map. That's a little bit big. just a little. And the max stack size for this will be 37. Value doesn't matter when we're using it at the moment. So, okay, we have 2 different test items, which is good. The chest will start with test item 1, 50 of them. Actually, let's make that 200 of them. And then the player, for testing purposes, will start with test item 2, and I will give it, let's also just give it 200. Oh, and then also add to viewport inventory component for the player. So get player character, get inventory, or get inventories. I need to implement that still. I don't have that. So we'll just get index 0. And then implement it in here before I forget. Class settings, interfaces, inventory utils. Where is it? Interfaces, inventory, get inventories. Inventory. How many times can I say inventory within one stream, you think? I think the answer is going to be a lot. The reason this is an array, by the way, for anybody who hasn't followed along with the inventory course, is because you can very much have multiple inventories. And it's nice to have one interface to just get all the inventories. Specifically for like the save system as well. The save system will just get all the inventories on a object and save them all. And then set them all in the exact same order every single time, because it's using this interface. So it's getting them all consistently within the same order, within the same like actor and instances and stuff. So I think that's kind of everything there is to it, to be honest with you. So let's give that a shot. I think I'm going to just put the chest in here, which is level 02. It's fucking somewhere in here, surely. 02, combat tutorial. Where did I? BP chest. There we go. Which one did I map it to again? This is just testing. We'll implement this a little bit, like cleaner later, with like an interaction system and stuff. So jump. I don't know if it'll recognize my input. It's also on the wrong audio output. Okay, so I do have the items here in my inventory, so that's pretty good. And then if I walk up to you and I try to jump, yeah, it doesn't recognize my input, because what it needs is enable inputs. I mean, at this rate, I might as well just enable and disable input instead of doing this gate stuff. But again, it's just for testing purposes. This is the way my brain works. We'll live. It'll be fine. That's that's maybe not the way that I would have liked to see that. But I can very much just actually let's change how that all looks and works, because I don't love that either. It's in my example content, so let's just make this like big all the way and this big all the way, and then set these anchors. There we go. Thanks for the info. How to implement Unreal 5 C++ from vanilla C++, and optimization wise, how different is this engine from Unity? Oh, don't worry about asking questions. That's part of the fun with live stuff, is being able to like go back and forth. Optimization compared to Unity, like I only have a fairly basic understanding of Unity. Is one thing that should be made clear like from the start. Optimization, I don't think it's that big a difference. On the very low level, because everything is C++, it technically would be more performant than C# scripts. But I don't think it's a like notable difference in like the actual performance of like your game logic. And as far as the engine optimization itself goes, like I don't know enough about the very low level stuff of either engine. I know that the engine itself for Unity, of course, is also written in C++, so that's not going to make a difference. I don't know the code base for either engine well enough to say anything on that. What I do know is that as far as like general technology goes, I think Unreal is a little bit ahead, right? They came up with like Nanite, and now they've got this like Mega Light stuff, and Nanite is coming to skeletal meshes and whatever, and that's just like generally going to. Well, let me be clear: Nanite doesn't improve performance. Nanite takes away workload to allow still acceptable performance. Nothing is going to outcompete performance-wise a good set of LODs. Just like good LODs are still going to perform better than Nanite. But only going to make one high poly model and just call it a day saves you quite a bit. And it's going to maybe look better than some LODs. So yeah, there's all that. Oh, we definitely should also disable looking around. But for now, well, actually, I guess this works. So we can not close this. Hold on. We don't have a closing button. Button. Let's real quick add that. I keep getting sidetracked, but long story short, I don't think, as far as like optimization goes, there is really a lot of difference between the two engines. Like, just don't write like insane code and stuff everything into like your update or tick functions, and you'll probably be fine. We can probably automate like setting the focus to this thing, but I don't care. So yeah, the thing that we're gonna find in a moment, and this is what I'm trying to get to with the inventory stuff, is we can very easily change these items around, and then I didn't hook up the close button. I am actually just like a fucking idiot. But as you can see, you're working with Unreal. It's quite nice to be able to just like put in a blueprint thing and just say, okay, we have this button on-clicked, instead of having to tie a script to it. Specifically for like visual things like animation logic and like these widgets, like the interface or user interface logic. I personally like just having the ability to like just plop down a couple of nodes and call it a day. Remove from parent, instead of having to go in and make like separate script files for these. which also means that you don't have to like recompile a bunch of stuff when you make a change to this. So it makes going back and forth and making stupid mistakes like that and forgetting stuff quite nice. The other side of that is that because they are technically assets, they don't get saved separately from your project. So if your engine crashes and you have a bunch of blueprints opened that you haven't saved in a while, you've also lost that progress. Whereas a C++ or a C# file or whatever, of course, is a separate file that lives separately on your disk that you added through your IDE. So like that is better for that reason. Anyway, so we can change these two things around, and then I can, for the love of God, get my camera back, kind of, maybe. And now we can see that is entirely up to date. When I go into a different level, nothing should change because my character exists in the persistent level. But if I go back and forth, this guy will have, that's not what I wanted to do, will have his original items back, right? So that's not ideal. Also, the fact that my cursor is fucking up, but we'll, again, deal with that at some other time. For now, it's good enough to... Why is that, actually? I guess what we want to do is we want to... set input mode... what is it? Input mode game only. And flush input. And then when this thing gets constructed, we set input game and UI. And widget in focus will then just be this. I really like that if you just type this, because that's how damn near every programming language refers to like references to the object itself, it still gets you a reference to itself. That's quite nice. And also flush input on that. I think that'll fix my focusing issue. But now, so what I want to do, and this is not exactly optimal maybe, but what I want to do is I want to save all the inventories every time I leave a level and then load all the inventories every time I enter a level. And hopefully my logic for the game as a whole, or the plugin as a whole, is robust enough to just work. That's the thing that I wanted to test. So now I'm actually getting a little bit nervous. Because also, what I need to do in order to get to that is open my game instance. Yeah, remember when I said you can program entire games within Blueprint? Like, this is the reason that you maybe don't want to do that, because it becomes quite messy. This is only my level loading system. Like, this is not the entire game. This is just what happens to load in my levels when I go from like door to door. As a result, only one of these levels is loaded at a time, so it's like very well optimized. So I can be very unoptimized when constructing those levels. But yeah, so when we... so it's been a while since I've poked around in this file because it is a mess. And I don't like dealing with it. C# is just one file, and you're with model behavior, but you use a header file. Just creating one function, doing the same things over and over again seems too much work. I mean, the header file, it's not really that big a deal. Like, the header file is just where you declare everything, and then the CPP file is where you implement them. You can technically also like write the entire function out in the header file. It'll just increase your compile times. I believe is the only difference there. Like, once it is compiled, I don't think it has any performance difference in which file you implement this stuff. So you can do that, I think. But yeah, it's split between like declaration and implementation, which is a thing to get used to. I quite like it because it means that you have an easy to access list of everything that exists in a file. So if you go into like my character, okay, this is very badly organized, but like all the declarations with white space for my character, or like all the variables and all the functions that exist on it, the declarations by itself are like 400 lines with a lot of white space in there. So if you take out the white space, that's probably like 250 lines. So I quite like having that in its own little file here. It's a thing to get used to, though. Okay, so what are we gonna do here? This is level load. So it like does this also unload the level is the question. Where does it unload? We load level stream, unload level by name. Okay, so we bind to that level being shown, then we load it. So before we unload, we should save. So get inventory subsystem. We should try to save inventories, right? So now we need to get the save slot name as well. Ooh, that might be tricky. Do I have a way to access what save file I'm playing at this time? I did not think that through. Did not think that through at all. I don't think I have a way at the moment to distinguish. I mean, I can fairly easily make that. Just save name or current save name. You know, I think actually we should just have one save file for everything that happens during gameplay. So we can just say like gameplay as the save slot name. And then only when like actually loading in and saving the save files do we use the proper save file names. So when we load in, what we'll do is we'll load in the proper like save 5 inventory save file and just dump all that information into our gameplay inventory save file. So that no matter what we do, we can always just like refer to the gameplay inventory because that's what matters when we're playing the game. The reason I'm saying that is how do we even deal with like loading one save file and then saving to other save slots and like keeping track of what should be what? Like, I don't think we want to do that. Like, we definitely want to steer clear of that, I think. So I think we're just going to save the inventory to a gameplay inventory. And then we'll unload this level. And then once the level is loaded, I think we just load inventory. I think this is all we have to do. Load inventory. Okay, tell me how to add a character in Blender, please. Yeah, so you'll need to like get a character model and then just import it like Burger is telling you. This is the Steam game, yeah. So this is the game that is linked down below in the description to the wishlist page, which is very temporary in a lot of ways. So I think this is all we need to do. Because what this will do is it will get all the actors, save them to the save file, and then on level load, it will load them from that save file. Now, I haven't yet tested what happens when you try to load an inventory for a character that doesn't exist. I think I have like if statements in place to check that. but maybe those don't work. We're about to find out. So, yeah, this should now just like at all times function. So, oh, but there's one massive issue. No, it is not. Never mind. No, there is not. Okay, let's like swap these two item stacks around. This might be all it takes. First and foremost, this is still consistent, so it's not overriding my character inventory. Moment of truth. Yeah, no, it's still fucked. That is because neither of them have the proper tag. So it saves inventories of actors that have the inventory tag, and I entirely just forgot to give this guy that tag. So probably shouldn't make that a function of the inventory component, to be honest with you. Because this is going to get very tedious very quickly otherwise. Don't need to open up those assets. Actor tags. Okay. Let's try again. So far so good. Take this, put that there, close, leave. That's kind of fucked. It reset my inventory. Why did it reset my inventory? It probably also reset this inventory, right? Yeah, okay, so why does that happen? Why does that happen? 1 second. I'm gonna go for a super quick bathroom break while I think about why this is messing up. And then I'll also respond to the Megascans thing. If you are just getting into Unreal, Megascans, you can still claim the entire library for free for the rest of 2024. So even if you're just considering Unreal Engine, go do that right now, because it's free. And free shit is good. So, Megascans. It's a little complicated because on the one side it sucks, right? Unreal used to offer this whole like free amazing library, and it's not going to be free anymore with moving over to Fab. At that point, I think the question very quickly turns into what do you think about Fab? There's like marketplace that goes beyond engines, that is owned by one of the major engines. I think it's kind of neat. I think it's kind of cool. But it also like comes with this issue. And the reason that I say that is because, and here we go. It used to be free in Unreal Engine because they could bank on if you use them in big productions and you make a lot of money, you need to like pay the Unreal Engine license, which is like a percentage of whatever you make, right? If you make over like $1 million, I think, in total. And that's effectively what was paying for mega scans. But now on Fab, you're also able to take these assets and just like pull them into ZBrush and start using them in your like just normal renders, or make a movie with them, or worst case scenario for Epic. Not really, but you can use them in Unity. Like Fab has built-in Unity support. Like you can take these assets and use them in Unity. None of these ways they are making money on them anymore. So by necessity of expanding their marketplace into broader than just Unreal Engine, offering this stuff up for free doesn't really work anymore monetarily, right? So they need to charge for the individual models. Do I think they could still have a licensing thing where you can use them free as long as they're within Unreal Engine? Yeah, because that's what it does right now. You can just download them, export them out of Unreal, and use them in whatever you want anyway. But that's not covered within the license. Like, you have a license to use them for free in Unreal Engine. If you like pirate them out of Unreal Engine into Unity or into Blender or Maya or whatever, and like use them for other purposes, that's already not covered by the license that you're using them under. So I don't really see much of a reason that that license couldn't just continue, other than it's now more convenient to use them in other stuff. And maybe it's a little bit unclear if they're on the marketplace, but you like can use them for this, but not for that without paying. It causes confusion as well. So long story short, I think it's kind of complicated, and it comes down to whether or not you see Fab as being a good thing. And for the most part, I think I do. Yeah, I also think that things not showing up in Fab is probably a issue with everything is also being migrated to Fab at the moment, which is probably a lot. So it's probably going to take like some time to trickle out. So why the fuck does my inventory system saving not work? Because clearly it is saving the inventory. Do I just need to like delay this a little bit? Will that solve it? Am I just loading in the level too quickly? Oh, hold on. We probably actually... That's a fantastic point. We probably should be saving this anyway before we start loading that thing in. Yeah, because this is load level. Yeah, this is low level, and then we save it once it's complete. Yeah, no, that makes no sense. We definitely should be saving this before we even start loading. So then I don't think that delay is needed. This might fix everything up. I'm sure it will catch up, but it's not. It's a little annoying and a little confusing to a certain extent, because I claimed the mega scans and was like, okay, where are they? In my library? My library is empty. Do you have any idea how much stuff I have in my Unreal Marketplace library? Okay, so it actually, this is consistent now. Like, it's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I've either bought or gotten free for the month. And I was like, where is it? Calm down. They're probably just migrating everything over. Okay, so this stays consistent, which is good. This is not getting overridden. This is not being loaded in properly. So that is potentially still weird. So this is bind to on level shown. So by all means, it should be able to load those in, right? Because it doesn't unload until after all this. Is licensing still an issue today? Someone never opened the 3D modeling software. Can make a mesh with AI. I mean, they kind of suck though. And there is like a very difficult legal question to ask whether or not those things are piracy. Like, I don't have a strong opinion on that one way or the other. I think like both sides of that argument. I don't want to be like Mr. Centrist over here, but I think both extreme sides of the AI argument are, in my eyes, have to be somewhat disingenuous to argue the way they do. Because like AI just straight up being theft, I think like is ridiculous. But then there's the people who are like, I'm an AI artist. I write a prompt and the art is mine. And I'm like, no, that's not quite how that works either. I don't think. So like there's nuances with that as well. Personally, I'm a huge fan of AI generated things don't infringe on copyright by the virtue of them existing, but are also unable to hold copyright of themselves. So an AI generated image would just be by default public domain. Now, if you take that public domain image that you've just generated and then added them into something else, that is now your copyright. That specific output of that. That is the way that I would like to see things surrounding AI working. And I think that will also promote creativity. I generally think that, like, yeah, we need copyright to protect people's works, but I also think that copyright is maybe a little too strict at times and doesn't promote creativity because of it. I don't know if anybody here is, I didn't change anything. Why would it behave differently? I don't know if anybody here is within like the Minecraft like online sphere. Oh, it does. Why does it not have the inventory tag anymore? What the fuck? Okay. But there's been this thing about like Skyblock recently. I'm sure everybody knows what Skyblock is. And whether or not that's like trademarkable or whatever. And I'm like, if the concept of Skyblock was like trademarkable or copyrightable, so many like spin-offs of Skyblock wouldn't have been allowed to be made. So the idea that you could claim that would stop a lot of creativity. It would protect the creator of the initial Skyblock, but it would also hinder a lot of creativity, which is, I don't think, good. Anyway, now that we have all that set up, now it should be persistent between both inventories, right? So, fuck me. Why don't you... I think I actually make it output log as well. Actor BP chest does not... Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. It needs to have inventory utilities as well. That's going to be a thing that I fuck up a lot. You see, logging stuff is good. Logging stuff means that they don't break. Well, when they do break, you know what happened. Okay. Close. Please? Hell yeah! Okay, so I can change an inventory, leave the level, re-enter, and the inventory will still be the same. That is a thing that I was afraid might be a pain in the ass to do, but it seems like I coded everything 1000% like properly. And matter of fact, I'm actually about 99% sure that the way I coded it is even overkill. I think I can actually simplify this, because as you can see, this thing might be called BP chest, right? But if I go into the output log, it calls it BP chest C2. And my character is BP character underscore 1. So I think they all get assigned a unique name within the project as a whole. So even if I now move this thing like over here, just as a test, right? And I change its streaming level to being a starting room, because that's where it is now. Move selected actor to level, and I change its name just to BP chest. They both have the same name, but I think they still will be dealt with as separately named things. So at the moment, I'm also, when I'm saving the data for an inventory, the way I'm saving it is level name, actor name, and then inventory index. I think I can just take out the level name as a whole. We're going to check that, because that would make a lot of the code so much more simplified. So in theory, if they now share the same name, that would mean that going into the other map, I will see the updated inventory that I just made. Ooh, okay. So that is doubly... oh no, wait a second. Because it still has the save data of what I did to it a moment ago. So let's take all these out. Go to this one. Yeah, see, it has a entirely separate inventory, even though it shares the same name in level with these two. So let's see, do we have like logs for those as well? Gotta scroll down pretty far for that. I don't think I actually have logs for successful stuff, which makes sense, but the metadata outer doesn't seem to be getting set properly in the chest inventory. We'll look into that in a moment. But yeah, so that means, I think, I can clean up some of this code and make it a little bit more like concise. So let's actually do that. Because we have this like inventory subsystem CPP. And here we have save inventory, right? And I have the separate logic for the player and generic objects, because the player doesn't need to have the level assigned to it, and it shouldn't. But now looking at this, I don't think it matters. No, actually it does matter. Because if you have levels with separate players, like separate player characters, you still want them to load in their inventory, and they would technically be separate instances, right? In my game, the player character is persistent throughout the entire game, it lives in the persistent level. But if you have a game where you go from like one level into another level, that's technically a different instance of your player, and you still want to load in that same inventory. So this is still necessary to do. So I actually don't think we can change this. Okay, so now let's take a look at why that inventory, that metadata outer isn't being set properly, because that's kind of weird. Because we have, like, this has the... just because I was on empty inventory slots, wasn't it? Yeah, so this is metadata outer set properly. It's just this one. Okay, so that actually... everything just works. Sweet. Here's something on top of that. If using photogrammetry like reality capture to create or steal 3D models can create a licensing issue. I mean, that gets into a little bit of like murky waters, which is interesting to discuss and like be philosophical about, I suppose. But if you just if you do that to like a natural object, I think that has like enough human involvement to say, hey, the natural object itself, you might not be able to like claim creatorship on and copyright on that, but like doing good photogrammetry and especially like potential like lighting cleanup and that kind of stuff to make it like flatly lit so that you don't have like any actual lighting artifacts on it anymore. So you do the photo capture and then you make a 360 capture of the environment so that you can like subtract that from the texture data, all that kind of stuff, which is a thing that you can do. And that will make your assets unlit effectively. So just flat lighting, there's no environment lighting on it anymore. All that stuff is enough of a process to say, yeah, even if you didn't make the object that you're doing this to, that's probably enough to say, hey, you have some sort of copyright on this. I'm not a lawyer, but like ethically I think that's what I think. That said, though, if you go and do that to like a sculpture that somebody made, like you definitely don't have the right to do that, right? Like something somebody else made belongs to them, and if you go and photo scan it, that doesn't mean that you suddenly like have the rights to that 3D model. Again, I don't know about legally, but ethically speaking, I don't think that you should is a better way to phrase that, I think. So yeah, that gets into like slightly murky waters where you're like, yeah, okay, so how does this all hold up? And the answer is, I think copyright is over aggressive, because there definitely should maybe be an argument to say, hey, if a sculptor made this as a sculpture to like display in public, why can't I also like just photo scan it to put it in my game? But then, if you're just photo scanning it to sell it as an asset, I think it comes down to what counts as transformative. And I think transformative at this point, in practice, a lot of things that I might consider transformative, legally speaking, are not. And I think that definition should be broadened. Not too far, but to some extent. So yeah, so what do we do now, right? That's the next question. What do we do now? Because this just works, which is kind of amazing. I guess, we do need to implement this within the save system. Where the fuck is my save code? I think it's also an action RPG. Yeah, save game. So yeah, save and load game. I think load game is maybe a function instead of an event. Where the fuck is load game? I have save game. You're not going to tell me load game doesn't exist in the same place as save game, right? That would be fucking stupid. But it's kind of starting to seem like it might be the case. Let me go to my checkpoint menu, because there is a non-zero chance that, oh, hold on, load game would be a level loading, right? So the only way to get to load game is from the main menu. Main menu is this, create load menu widgets. Load menu is this. When you press on bind on load game. Okay, load game exists as a part of my level loading monster. And then we have load save, which is part of the game mode. Man, that is a fucking mess and a half. Maybe at some point I'm gonna need to refactor that, but for now I think get inventory subsystem. We're just gonna load inventory with this name. And then in the game instance, we had the save game. I think we just kind of, like at the very start, just include that. Don't think it really matters where we do it. Say get inventory subsystem and save inventory. But we also need to, when we load in, after we have, yeah, okay, so this is actually a little bit more tricky. After where the fuck this function exists, because it's a mess. After we've done all that, we also need to check whether or not that save slot exists to begin with. So actually, let's move this a little bit further ahead. Load save from slots. Yeah, let's do this after load save, or before load save from slot. So we load this inventory with the slot name, and then we save the inventory to the gameplay slots. So we save to gameplay, because I don't return a value to the save object or anything, which I maybe should. Anyway, after that, I'm gonna make spicy graphics and then create the most basic simulator game, launch it on Steam and get rich. I mean, if doing that and you're like creative enough to create something that'll sell, I mean, I know that you're being like a little hyperbolic there, but if you can do that and it's creative and fun enough to sell, like that should be possible and allowed, I think. Yeah. The thing is, though, 99.9999999% of people who do that and just create asset flips, like for the most part, those just horribly fail because they don't have the effort and like vision and creativity behind them that will make people buy it. Can you boost your volume a bit? I can boost it a little bit, yeah. There's not much room for me to boost it, but there's some. I'm a little on the quiet side today. What did it change anything? Hold on, you're right. I think it's in sound settings. Input device, set. No. No, okay. I was real afraid for a moment that I was using my webcam, which, like, if you guys have been listening to me on a webcam for an hour, I'm not complaining, that's on you guys. Device properties, yeah, so my volume is about 51%. I'm just going to keep talking and increasing it and seeing if... Hold on, this is actually... Oh, that's definitely clipping now. I think this... Yeah, that should be better. Yeah, so now I'm at about like -5-ish, which is like usually broadcasting. When I talk a little bit more softly, I'm at about -15. But even like this, I'm at -10, which is pretty good. Does this thing have like a built-in compressor? I've never actually looked at that. I'm sure that it does, now I think about it. Audio properties, no. Filters as gain and noise suppression. Do we have a compressor? We do. Let's see. Threshold should then be at about let's say -8.5. Ratio a little higher, and then the output release. Let's see what that's like. Yeah, I think that's going to improve the audio altogether, which actually will be... Oh, no, that's... now it's getting too loud. I was going to go over your inventory again today, got to the split stack part and rage quit. Yeah, that's a little tricky. Also, there's some issues with the drag and drop system that early on. We do replace that a little later. Let me just pull this down a little bit, maybe. Okay, so if I talk a little bit louder now, do we have a limiter? Do we also have a limiter? That would be fucking fantastic if we did. Now I'm getting stuck in these audio filters. We do have a limiter. So now it shouldn't allow me to go beyond like minus 2.5 seems pretty good. It's still going to sound a little bit like weird. And I don't have any like immediate feedback of how that sounds with those filters on. I need to get an XLR set up so that I can do this with hardware. Anyway, so why aren't you making them? Making what? I entirely lost the train of thought there. Because I got sidetracked a little bit. Sounds much better now. That's good to know. Okay, so yeah, we yeah, there's a bunch of ways to make an inventory system. I think it's actually quite fun. It's quite a good challenge to like really improve your programming skills in general, because you're working with something that you can't brute force. Like you can't brute force an inventory system. You actually need to set up like systematic code to like do shit dynamically. Okay, if this sounds good, I'm probably going to keep this for like recording purposes as well, which might actually make it easier for the autocutter that I use to cut out silences in Premiere, or maybe even DaVinci. Okay, let's see if I load a game now. This is gonna be a thing. This is gonna be weird. If I load this game, it will load me in with just my default inventory, right? Yeah. Now I need to walk all the way back. So that's not ideal. To a chest to put some items into that inventory. Go and save my game. Restart. And see if everything... There's also a save point in this room, so I'm going to save here. And see if everything persists between like save and loads. I found a simple simulator. I remember Tycoons. Because I don't really want to make that. And also because I don't think I do particularly well in terms of making something that is fun enough to like buy in those genres, because I don't like interact with those genres a lot. Okay, that is interesting. Because that shouldn't be the case. Oh, no, that definitely is the case, isn't it? Yeah, okay, so we need to have a... Okay, we also need to have something that clears a save file. Specifically for the gameplay save file. This is why we test stuff before we publish it. So in inventory system, or subsystem rather, I've made about 30 to 40 inventories. That's fucking what? A lot of them aren't very flexible, all just for one player and that's it. That's most YouTube videos, to be fair. To be even more fair, usually when something only works for one player, it generally is like the same steps to make it multiplayer compatible, depending on what you need. Because a lot of things just like use get player character and assume that that's a reference to the player character. And if you have more than one, that can be annoying. But get player character will always get your local player character, for instance. So if you're doing something with online multiplayer, that will still work. It just needs to like... all your data needs to be replicated. But inventory data probably doesn't need to be replicated for the most part. Like some of them should be. Like if you have armor that increases stats and stuff. But even then, you don't need to replicate the armor. You only need to replicate the stats that they impact. So yeah. So let's make a fucking let's save, generic save, inventory, create a load save, play, and create key name. Then I guess down here we make a void clear inventory save, which takes in a save name. Just gonna copy that over because I'm lazy. I don't want to typo anything. Sorry to say one player, I mean one container. It's just like inventory when you start adding hotbars. And oh yeah, I don't know how many other things work, but for like my system, that's just a matter of like adding more than one inventory component, right? So if I want to have like a hotbar, I just create a new inventory component and call it hotbar, and then make a widget that displays that inventory components. And like everything is already set up in a way that moving items between inventories is so seamless that it's like easy to implement that way. The only thing that might be a little bit tricky is like equipment stuff, because that's not just a list of items. That's some very specific slots. So that requires a little bit more like deeper implementation than the video that I made for it, to be honest. So yeah, I didn't do an amazing job on the whole equipment thing. Probably should redo that at some point. I don't even think you need a master inventory component, because then you're going to like bog yourself down by hard coding things in. If you just have multiple inventory components and they just like display on different parts of your UI, that's really like all there is to that, I think. Like a character can have multiple components of the same type. That's fine. If they have distinctly separate purposes and uses and whatever, like just having two inventory components is probably fine. Yeah, so create or load inventory save. I would save game name. Does this already? No. Probably should, to be honest with you, because I'm doing stuff in like 5 million different places. Like this, save game name and then adding the word inventory to it. Probably should just do that in like one central place instead of a bunch of sub places. Because now I'm not even consistent with my naming schemes between all of them as well, which is just the worst. Copy for each identification, that's fine. We need to make that a say inventory save. Fuck. Inventory save pointer inventory save equals that stuff, and then inventory save dots. Oh no, that's not a dot actually, that's an arrow. Inventories map dot empty, and then save game to slot. So that empties out the inventory for the gameplay save before we load in the new stuff. So anything that's not in there yet, it's not gonna like override between like different save files and all that kind of weird stuff. Did I not save anything in Blueprint? Hopefully not. So yeah, if you play like save slot 5 and you go into a map and you change something, but save slot 7 hasn't been in that map yet, we don't want to load in the inventory that's still like stuck in that map from a previous play session from a different save file. So whenever we load in the data to our gameplay save file, we first need to clear it out and then only load in that new data. So that any inventories that we come across that are supposed to be fresh aren't being like messed around with from other save data. That might not be the most elegant way to deal with this. Starting room, game instance, just restore. Let's see what it does. But that's the most straightforward way that I can think about right now. Otherwise, we would need to make a system where we actually use the individual save files for every single one. But again, that comes into so many issues when we like try to load and save stuff into different slots, and it's just a mess. Like with this kind of stuff, I can kind of understand why a lot of games these days are like, you get one save slot and you can just go fuck off. It's mostly because they want to just sell separate licenses for like families and stuff, which is a bit shitty. I don't need to worry about pretty much any of this, to be honest with you. Like all this just works. I have inventory, but it updates the UI on multicast, so I need to do look more into updating UI in multiplayer. Yeah, so that can be a bit tricky, right? Because if you want to have two people look at the same inventory at the same time and update them, that can be less than ideal to have to deal with. So we have... Oh, did I not make it a U function? Am I just that stupid? Oh yeah, I didn't make that a U function. I set it to the private functions even, so I can't even access it. Yeah, let's mark this as a U function and try again. This time, let's just make sure that everything is saved, just in case. And fucking recompile again. Yeah, so having like player 2 see it when player 1 moves something in an inventory, that becomes a pain real quick, I imagine. Because at that point, you would need to... Like when player 1, or when any player changes something about the inventory, you would need to bind the on-inventory changed delegate, because you're going to need one of those, like no matter how your inventory system works, pretty much. You would need to also bind like a network function, like a server function to that. Or like a, what is it called? The type of function that just runs on all clients. I'm not particularly like deep into replication stuff, because it's generally just a pain to deal with. But I suppose I can check that here, right? Oh no, it's only for events, isn't it? Yeah, multicast. That's what you were talking about, right? So maybe with that, you'd bind this to that, but then you need to like... But then you would need the entire inventory component to also be replicated. So it might be better to just send through the entire inventory as like a struct, so that it only updates the relevant stuff and sends it to like the relevant people, so that it doesn't replicate the entire inventory for every player at all times to everybody else, because that seems like wildly unnecessary, just to support that a little bit. So like just like baking everything down into one struct that you can send through with like a delegate or something like that. I don't know. I'm just kind of like spitballing here. What was I doing? I was doing something in the instance, I believe. Not in there. Oh no, in the load. So it wasn't the game mode. And then I'll load save. Oh yeah, that's what I was doing. So we load the inventory, but then we clear inventory save for gameplay, and then we save the inventory that we just loaded to gameplay inventory. That should be pretty much good to go. So that happens on game load, right? Yes. Okay, let's try that out. But just as a general warning, like if you're following my inventory stuff and need to adapt it to multiplayer, you're still gonna like have a headache. Because I didn't necessarily make it with multiplayer mode. I think it should be portable to multiplayer related stuff without too much trouble, because it is a fairly like composition based system, right? As I was just talking about, like if you have multiple inventory components, like moving from one component to the other is pretty seamless, and you don't need to like set up a bunch of extra code to do that, because it already works that way. But then like syncing that up between different clients over like either like a hosting server or like a whatever, that might be slightly on the more tricky kind. Actually, does this clear my inventory? It doesn't, because it's not registered yet. That makes sense. One of the reasons I switched to Unreal is they say making multiplayer games is more simple. Well, I'm not necessarily like a networking expert in any way, shape, or form. Matter of fact, I kind of suck at it and I despise it. But Unreal is very much built for that stuff. I'm gonna just, to be sure, check whether or not it still works like between maps real quick. Like technically, I don't know how Unity works, but I think Unity's like netcode is a lot more like bespoke. Technically speaking, any Unreal game runs on a server. It's just when it's a single player game that doesn't have any implementation, the server is just your local machine. And I don't think Unity quite works that way, right? So it makes it easier to replicate a bunch of stuff. It replicates a bunch of stuff out of the box for you as well, which is quite nice. Like when you just have a character movement component or something. Let's see, we saved this. I still need to fix that bug. Like when you have a character movement component on something, it's just replicated. So movement is automatically replicated, meaning that positioning is automatically replicated, which is like 90% of games are going to need that anyway. So it's kind of nice that it's just there out of the box. But aside from that, I've done a couple of small projects to fuck around with it, but then I figured out that, hey, in order for this to actually work out, I'm going to need to like actually have like a connecting server and stuff like that. And I didn't want to bother with that. So I've never actually gone through and tested much of it. I've only programmed up like proof of concept and then kind of dropped it. Okay, that all set. We now, in theory, have a game save that has an inventory saved with it. So if I go into Spawn a Tutorial, and I open up my inventory, it does have the skulls in it, and it doesn't have the other thing in it, which is fantastic. Oh, hold on. On new game, we also need to clear the gameplay save data. I just realized. But all that aside, the player inventory seems to be loading properly across save files. I need to make like a separate save file in a moment as well, where I like almost clear out this entire chest or something. I don't think this saved properly though. And that is because... Oh, yeah. Okay, so why is that? That is because it saves the inventory at the moment when you save your game, right? So it only saves the inventory of the things that are loaded at that time. So what it needs to do when you save is it needs to take in the current gameplay save and put that into the save file that you're creating. So what we... Okay, let me think about that for a moment. It's not quite unlimited save slots. I have 99 of them, so like going down to 99, that should be enough. I actually have like 2 tutorials showing how I set this entire system up. It's effectively like this thing is a widget in and of itself, and then it has like a box that just dynamically generates 99 of that widget within it, and links up a delegate to every unclicked of these with its own like save name and stuff. But you can very much expand that to more save files if you want to, or dynamically, like when all save slots are filled, adding a new one. Like that should be pretty easy to expand that way. But in my opinion, I just had like 99 because after 99, the aligning for the numbers starts being annoying to deal with. Okay, so yeah, what we need to do is we need to get the save object, or at least get all the save data. From the gameplay save. And put it into... Okay, so there's a couple of ways that we could do this. We could make a function that gets the just a save object, and then implement the moving from the data from one into the other in Blueprint in this project. Or we can just make a C++ function that takes in... It's probably good to make that like getting anyway. Yeah, so let's just do both. The other option I didn't finish, I'm sorry. The other option is making a function that takes in 2 names and takes the save data from one and puts it into the other name, effectively, right? So we'll do both. So we'll make a U function that is blueprint callable, and we'll make that a U inventory save pointer get inventory save with save game name, and that'll effectively just be return this. So that's just a nice function to have anyway. Now I need to think. This is the most difficult part of programming. And I make this joke a lot, but it's actually like very true. Now I need to think of a name for the other function. How are we going to name this? First, it's going to be a U function. That's going to be blueprint callable, of course. This will be just a void. And then like replace save file. Replace save file? Is that a good one? I think replace save file is pretty good. Replace save data. F string save game name, inventory save data. That's definitely not it. F-string name though is save game, a save name, and then a F-string for save to replace name. I think that makes the most sense to do it this way. So then we just copy these over. You see why I think this should just be in there. I feel like that makes a lot more sense, but this will be then, man, it's getting more inconsistent with the naming. I'm gonna fix this at some point, don't worry. We'll get that. And then we have the save game. And I guess we also make one for the save game to replace, right? Can we just plus equal? We should just be able to plus equal that, actually. That should work, right? Maybe that doesn't work with f-strings. Never mind. So save game to fucking... I'll add a temp to it. An inventory save... Now it's the other way around, man. It's the inventory save to replace inventory map will be set to be the inventory's map from the initial one. So that makes sense, right? We're taking this one, loading it in, taking this one, loading it in, and I'm putting this one into that one. I feel like we should just, to be very safe, also clear this one first. I don't know if just overriding it like that. I think that should also get rid of any entries in this one that weren't in this one, but this just ensures that. I've been searching for a tutorial on how to calculate scaling for weapon damage in a Souls game, and I can't figure out how to make a soft cap at level 50. Any tips? Kind of depends on what you mean. Like, if you just want to have a damage cap, it also depends on how you're implementing it right now. I would probably personally implement this with a curve. And if you just implement this with a curve where you can say, hey, level 1 is this, level 50 is this, then anything after level 50 isn't going to have any data. It's just going to default back to the value that it was at level 50, I believe. And then you can even put in some other keys in between. And you can have like font interpolation and stuff like that. But if you're doing this entirely based on like a formula, first and foremost, you probably just want to check, hey, is your level 50? And if your level is 50, just don't allow to level up anymore. That's one thing. And maybe if you want to have like a specific damage cap, you can just clamp the value. But that seems like maybe not the best way to do it, because that's going to not be clear toward the player, I don't think. The player's just going to be like leveling up and not knowing why the hell it's not dealing any more damage. Which might be frustrating. So it's probably better to like prevent them from leveling up. And that's just a simple like check, hey, is level 50 or higher? If so, just fucking disable the level up button for that. assuming that you can like level up individual stuff. And if it is an automatic leveling system, which I think is more of like a JRPG thing, I don't think Souls-like games often do that. Just don't make your level go, like your level curve go between 50 or beyond 50. Like, I think I have like my stats are a curve table, right? So I just personally fill them out one thing at a time. But like my health at level 1 is 100, and at level 2 it's 110, 120, up to 200 at level 10. This is gonna be filled out a little bit more. But you can see they also are like visualized as these curves. And if I were to somehow get a value over here, I haven't tested that, but I'm fairly certain that it's just going to clamp it to the highest value that it has. So, but if you want to, you can post it in the Discord, and there's like more people and me that can take a look at it there. Okay, for the saving, let's go back to what we're doing. For the saving, which should be somewhere in here, I think. Where did I put it? I think it's in here. So yeah, instead of save inventory, we should be replace save data. So now I forgot what it is again. I think its save game name is going to be put into the save game to replace. So this will be gameplay. I think that's the one that we want to use. And then in level loading, actually, on new game, we also want to clear... Man, this is getting very messy. Get inventory subsystem. Clear inventory save for gameplay. At some point I had the idea to rewrite this entire thing in C++, and then I looked at this and I was like, oh yeah, maybe actually don't do that. It works right now. Just keep your hands off it. It doesn't seem like something that you maybe want to be dealing with too much. Because it's bad. It's real bad. Yeah, so once again, let's try to load game. And then we're going to be loading the spawner tutorial one, which will have like my updated inventory. And I might just need to clear all my save data as well, because some of these save files are going to maybe like be problematic. I don't think they will be, because they're technically like entirely separate objects. So I think it should be robust enough to just like pick up wherever it left off and start adding things as they become relevant. But this should be a full thing now. I'm going to take everything out of it. And I'm going to put one thing back into it. Again, just as a test, we're going to walk out of it first. That is still consistent, so that's good. And then once we have this saved, and I'm not even like thinking about overriding save files at this point. We'll like take a look at that in a moment. For now, I just want to know whether or not it saves the inventories, and if I like start a new game or load a different inventory or a different save file rather, that it doesn't do this. So I'm going to set this to a new save file. First, before we do anything else, I'm going to load. I haven't been able to start those courses yet. I've been super busy. Oh, that's not a good sign. I've been really quite busy with a lot of stuff. So I haven't really been able to get into those courses from Humble Bundle yet, but I'm looking forward to doing so. They look really good. Then again, I just finished like the sculpting part of the character that I'm working on right now, so it's not that high on my priority list. Okay, so this just didn't load anything at all. I wonder why that is. So surely it's got something to do with the loading side of things, right? Not the saving side. Maybe it is the saving side. The inventory to replace is getting set to the inventory map of the... So yeah, the thing that we're loading in will be the gameplay, and it will replace the actual like on-disk save file. Right, that makes sense to me. So yeah, we're loading in gameplay and we're putting that over the slot name. So that makes sense. Unless... Does load game at any point like clear this stuff as well? I mean, it clears the thing, but then it saves immediately to it with the thing that it just loaded. But that doesn't make sense either, actually. Because we are loading the inventory from the thing, and then we're clearing gameplay, and then we're saving gameplay. But saving gameplay won't do anything. So what we actually need to do is do a replace here as well. Because what we're doing is we are loading the slot name and we're putting it into the gameplay save. Which makes that entire section a lot more straightforward anyway. I need to scroll down quite far. So yeah, I don't think that this is going to be changed yet. This is just like default inventory. I also need to make sure that when I clear save data, it also now clears the corresponding inventory save data. I did think about making it all into one save object, but that is kind of like a pain to do for like the... let's just pull all these in like this. That's kind of a pain to properly do for like making it a plugin that everybody can like easily use, because it's so tightly integrated with the actual like objects. And there we come into like a similar issue. If you're working with a couple of different plugins that do that, you suddenly like don't have an ability to combine those things anymore. So making it a separate object seemed like it made the most sense at the time, and it still kind of does. I'm just going to overwrite this one because it's going to be very annoying otherwise. Wait, do I just not have an inventory? No, I do. Okay, it just doesn't display there. Let's ignore those errors for now. Load game. Moment of truth. Fucking default inventory. Why? Doesn't give me any log outputs, actually. So the question is the issue the saving side or the loading side? How are you doing in the dungeon? Just different levels that open up. So yeah, that is what all of... no, sorry. All of this logic does is like a very quick rundown. It might be good to just take my mind over the inventory in a moment. a very quick rundown is all of these rooms are their own like separate streaming levels. So you can see like over here, all of these are their own individual streaming levels. So I can very much open these up as individual levels, but they all exist within this persistent level. And when I run into a door that has a just a delegate that fires like, hey, the player just overlapped with this door, and the door has a reference to the next level. Technically speaking, that reference only sets a name variable, and then it loads it by the name. But for the convenience of me making the game, it has just a drop-down menu of a bunch of all the levels, and it checks, hey, what level is this door supposed to lead to? Then it finds the name, and it loads that level through load by name. And then in that newly created level, what it does is it gets all of the doors in this level and checks, hey, do any of these doors lead to the level that you were just in? So before it like unloads the level that you were just in, it saves the name of that level to a variable, and it's going to compare that name to every door in the newly loaded level. So that way it knows, okay, you just exited level 01. This door here leads to level 01, so logically speaking, I should put you at that door, because that is the door that you just, quote-unquote, exited. So I don't have to, like, explicitly link these two doors together. It's just, this one leads to combat tutorial, that's 02. This is level 02, and this one leads back to 01, so the game just knows, okay, you came from that level, I'm going to put you at the door that corresponds to it. I mean, you can post the link, but I'm not going to look at it on stream because the stream is probably not going to be that much longer, and I really should be looking at the save thing as well. But that's a quick rundown of how my level system works. If you do have Discord, it's probably just easier to send it in there. I'll take a look at it probably like sometime tomorrow or the day after. Probably have time to do so tomorrow. I've got a lot of projects going on at the same time though. So start a new game, that's not even like relevant, right? So I have to wonder. Is that just like a player thing? That it doesn't load proper inventory? Because like fucking reasons? I have to check. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if YouTube will block the link. But as far as I'm concerned, you can post a link. But if I have like no way to get back to you after the stream, that's not going to help very much, I don't think. Oh, it actually did save this one. Huh. Okay. The plot thickens. Because if I go back to this save, this is now the moment of truth, right? If I go back to this save, does it have a full inventory in the chests? Because this still has the default inventory. There's something going a little fucky there, I'm sure. Oh, I know why. I know why. Because I'm doing this before I possess that character. So it's not technically the player character yet. And the inventory system looks at the get player pawn. So when it gets to this actor in the level, it doesn't know what to do with it. It thinks it's a generic character. So it treats it as a generic character, which means that it's going to try to like load by level name and stuff like that as well. But obviously it should treat it as the player character. You could probably also like introduce a tag for that or something. Potentially. But this... Okay, no. That's actually fucked. Because that should not be there in that level. So if I just do new game, out of curiosity, that does clear it, right? That just gives me the default loadout. Yes, it does. Okay, so something is not getting cleared properly in the gameplay save file when I load game. So before I replace, I need to clear it, I think. So in here... Okay, first and foremost, we have this load save. No, actually, hold on. That's definitely after we've possessed the player. So that's not the issue. Okay. Get back to that in a moment. Save game. Yeah, so I think we need to... But this should also clear it first, right? Yeah, so this should clear the inventory map. And then set it to a new value, but then why the fuck is it... Because now when I load this, because the most recent thing that it had it as an empty chest. It's gonna, or a full chest, rather. It's gonna display it as a full chest. So something is not properly like getting cleared somewhere. Unless it's still displaying it as an empty chest, and if that is the case, I'm just going to delete all the save files that exist on disk at the moment and just like start with a clean slate, because something might be like a little fucky there. But I don't think that should really be an issue. I'm fairly certain that this is going to show me a default chest layout now. Yes, it does. So it shows me a default chest layout now when I run in from room 7. But then when I load this in, I don't even think I need to necessarily like open up that chest. But just to be sure, I just want to see what happens, right? I also would very much like to know why it has battle music before the enemies are visible. I guess it's because of this dude, but he should be out of range. No idea how my music code works anymore, to be honest. It's been a while. Okay, but this still does show a default chest, so... What the fuck? Ah, man, I've been drinking a lot of water. I need another bathroom break. I'll be right back. The P gods have spoken to me. I know why I am messing this up. Because let's go through what happens in the replace save data, because this is the issue. I create the two names, then I load both of them in, then I empty one of them and set the map from one to the other, and then I do nothing. And then I try to load from that changed thing. But there's one very important step missing in there. Exactly that one. Except that that's not the things that it takes in, actually. Hold on. What does it take in? Oh, save game object. Yeah, okay. So It's the save game to replace, and then save game to replace temp name. That makes sense. And a user index here. Okay, so that's actually what's the right signature. I'm never saving the changes. So obviously that's not going to work. What do you think of Fab? If they're going to be a way to see Epic Launcher like we used to be able to on the marketplace, I kind of hope so, because I'm not a huge fan of how it just redirects you to a website right now. I guess that is just temporary, because, well, I hope it's just temporary anyway, because I'm not a amazing fan of that. I really want to just be able to do it with any launcher, because that's where, like, say what you will about the fact that Unreal, like the marketplace stuff for Unreal and just the normal Epic Games, like Steam competitor launcher, are one thing, which I have opinions on that on its own. I don't know why. Aside from the fact that they want to like funnel you from playing Fortnite to creating in Fortnite to using Unreal Engine. That is the reason why. But if you're going to do that, at least like have that Fab thing in there as well, right? Anyway, so yeah, I think the issue that I just was facing should be fixed now. So let's do it this way, because I think this is a lot faster. I'm just going to ignore that that test is done for now. We'll do a more thorough test in a moment. I'm going to take out these things and put them in here, and then I'm going to take this, put them in there. And I guess we'll just murder this dude real quick. That's fine. I often come to find solutions to my bugs when I'm in the bathroom. Sometimes I find a solution. I just need a little break. Yeah, it really... like usually for me it happens like a couple of times a week. I go for like 40-45 minute walk, just like to go into like the city center to do a little bit of shopping, and I specifically make a point to do that as a walk, and not like take a bus or like ride a bike, because it allows me to kind of like zone out my brain and let it solve issues. Either like programming issues, finding solutions to it, or just like creative thinking issues. And those are usually like the best moments of like productivity for me. So yeah, 100%. I'm going to save this as, let's say save slot 16, because why not? Then let's load game. Save slot 16. Moment of truth. It's in kind of weird positions, but that is, I think, mostly due to the layout of the screen. I don't think it loaded into the wrong positions. It loaded in the items, right? It loaded in the items. That is the single most important thing. The player has the, I think, correct inventory now. So the only thing that we need to check is whether or not that chest has the correct inventory, and whether or not that chest has the correct inventory when we load in a different save file that shouldn't have it like that. That's not the button that I... Okay, so this chest has the correct inventory, and you can see now that we have the proper layout. It is actually how we left it. So now, if we get the... Let's just actually do this top one, because I don't think it was saved to properly. So this has a different inventory. So the inventories now load, I think the inventories now load properly to their corresponding save files. Now, the fact that it did it for the player, I think means that it's just consistently working for everything, because the player, well, has different logic. It's still being updated within the same function call with all the other objects. Right? So... or maybe I'm just an idiot. No, wait, actually, no. This is supposed to be a clean inventory. So that works. So now let's go in here. This is also a clean inventory. So let's actually like swap one of these out. And now we're going to overwrite a save file. There's a couple more tests that we need to do. Let's do it like that. We go save this on an existing save file that doesn't have any inventory data. By all accounts, it's just adding it to a map. So there's no reason that this should not work. Because if we can just like read and write to a map, and we've proved that we can, adding something to a like empty map should be no problem at all. So like this, if we just save over, I think we loaded from the top one, right? So if we just like save over this, and we like just to test out real quick, new game still has a clean inventory or a clear chest. But then if we load from this top slot now, we should, yeah, okay, so we do have that up-to-date inventory. In the top slot now. So overriding a save file that already like was a pre-existing save file but didn't have like inventory data also works, because again, it's just adding entries to a map, right? That it's very flexible. What the fuck? What happened? I looked away for like half a second to look at chat, and then I was bitch slapped into the other side of the map. The combat effects, which ones? Do you mean the, like, those ones? Because the, like, the little, like, lines coming off of it, I think are kind of ugly. The other ones, like, I made everything myself, that first and foremost. I don't know why it keeps doing that. That's kind of weird. But yeah, the sword has two different things going on with it. It has the like actual trail that comes over the sword, and then it also spawns in a particle system that like almost has like this like Wolverine claw animation to it. So that's two like separate distinct things that it's doing at the same time, and I think like the combination of them works fairly well. Okay, that's what I needed to test. I'll go into a different map and just do a combo real quick there. And that also works out fairly well. So yeah, it has... I'll just do a new game, fine. No, that's not, no. Fuck. There we go. So yeah, it has the actual like physical trail, and then it has those like extra little like impact things. Extra little impact things are a fairly new addition, and I actually like really quite like them. If I switch to the like the scythe, you can see it doesn't have those. It only has the trail, and for the scythe, the trail should be a little bit longer, I think, as well. But those are all just made like in Niagara in Unreal. Real cool particle system. Okay, so now we try one more thing. Now we're loading a save file. We're going to be changing inventories inside this save file and saving it again. So now we need to override save data for inventories that's already there. And I'm fairly certain that just like the logic of how maps are handled will just do this to begin with. But I'm going to like take away from that inventory, and then the other inventory I'm going to place in like a bunch of this stuff. Right? So now I have one inventory that's been taken from, one inventory that's been added to. And if I save this, I think this will still properly function. Can I post a video of my inventory? It's 20 seconds long, I think. You might like... yeah, sure. Again, I don't know if YouTube chat is going to like censor any links if you post it in the YouTube chat. I don't think it will. Maybe it does. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's overwrite this save data and load again. First and foremost, that seems pretty promising so far. There's still some like errors every time I play the game, but we're just gonna ignore that because that's not inventory related. I am so happy that I can just run my own game at good frame rates on high settings now. Yep, this is everything taken out of it, except for the one thing that I put into it. And this thing should have a bunch of stuff put into it. Yes, okay, so that means that my inventory saving works, like fully. Which is fantastic, because this allows me to do so much more cool shit. Because now that I have an inventory system, if you've been here over the, like, well, not even past month, like last month at this point, I think, if you were here when I was doing the level designs for my like first vertical slice of a dungeon, I meant to have this out as a playable test build already, but I did a couple of in-person tests, and I really felt like I need to expand before I let other people play this. You will note that I had like a lot of trouble, specifically when we were doing the maze, which I think is this level over here. With like, okay, but what do I do on all the dead ends, right? And on this dead end here, like there's nothing there. And for this one, I think I put in like this enemy, and then there's another one somewhere around here where I put in like an experience orb or something like that. Was that in the maze? Also, the lighting in here is like fucking abysmal. I need to do something better with that, because like I'm on a 4090. I'm on an RTX 4090. I'm at 26 frames per second in this room. No. That's not okay. So I need to improve that like a lot. But yeah, like we have this like entire like optional little platforming path as well, right? Which then leads up to a wall of experience? Really? I don't know. That's fantastic. But if I could put an item up here, like a super potion, or a crafting ingredient that you need for a super potion, it suddenly is much more interesting to come up here, because it can be a much more unique pickup. So I can do a lot more with my level design if I have items to put in places. And I can maybe even make enemies have drop tables, right? If enemies have drop tables, they become more interesting than just experience dispensers that hurt you, because you can also start like farming for items suddenly. And if I then add in a basic crafting system, instead of just dropping potions, they can drop ingredients to potions, meaning that you can't just grind the same enemy over and over and over and over again to just get a shit ton of potions, because for example, right, this one might drop the potion vial, and then there's just a lot of those ghosts around here. There's some other enemies at some places, I swear. It's just real slow. To be fair, part of the reason that everything is so slow is also because I have a bunch of stuff loaded at the same time. And I might also be on cinematic scalability. No, I'm just on epic. Okay. It just doesn't like me loading the entire thing at once. Do I also still have like DaVinci open or something? No. Oh, okay. So yeah, those ghosts might like drop the like potion vial. But this might like drop the bottle cap that you need for it. And then this guy might drop the potion essence. And the three of them come together in a crafting menu to make a potion. So now you need to kill a number of all three of these kinds of enemies to make that potion, forcing you to interface with more variation within the game world. And I think that's good, because we can now vary up the rewards that you get instead of just giving the same reward for different tasks, which I think will open up a lot of flexibility for me in a design perspective. I've also decided that for the combat system, I want to introduce magic, because the combat system is just a little bit too much of mash X until you win. There is the dodging mechanic as well, and there is special attacks that you can do. Each weapon has its own special ability, but that didn't really offer up enough variation. So if I can make some magic spells that you can do as well, that would be nice. And I can tie those magic spells into the inventory system. Those magic spells can be items. Either items that you unlock once by crafting them with very rare items that you need to get through optional pathways in levels, or magic can be consumable items that you can craft and use. And that way you suddenly have a little bit more customizability as well about your character. And I think it would be even more interesting if for certain items you need to combine drops from enemies from different dungeons together, right? So right now we have this one dungeon, but what if you can get a damage upgrade equipment thing, and you need to get 5 different items, but those 5 different items are on the drop tables for different enemies that are nowhere close to each other on the map. So if you know about this, you can go explore the entire map and find those items before you start with the entire game. But realistically, you're going to get those items throughout the course of the gameplay. And you're going to see them in the crafting menu. You're okay, now I've got this one, I've got this one. And eventually, you've gone through enough of the game that you, toward the end of the game, will just have all those items to craft that upgrade, right? So that's kind of the idea behind why I wanted to implement this inventory system in the first place, because it allows for so much more creative freedom in designing both micro and macro game design. And now it's implemented and it works. So this actually wasn't as dramatic as I thought it was going to be. We did spend about 2.5 hours on it, but I get sidetracked a lot, so that's actually pretty good. How do I use curve tables? I think I'm going with that. So curve tables can be used in a number of different ways. I am using them in conjunction with the gameplay ability system, which has built-in support for them. But if you're not using the gameplay ability system, what you should be able to do, it's been a while since I've done this, so let me just check this out real quick in a random event graph somewhere. So you can get value from a curve or something. Let me just real quick make this curve if you just have a float curve, right? That can be a float curve assets, and I think you can just get value. So there you get value, so you put in an in time. The time is the x-axis, so that's the horizontal axis. And so if you put in 5, you're gonna get the float value at a value of a time of 5. And the wonderful bit is that this does interpolate, right? It interpolates linearly by default. So that is just with the normal curve. But if you have a curve table, let's see. Is it not called curve table? Let me see. No, it is. Oh, curve table is technically a data table, I think. Yeah, so you might need to make them into separate curves. I don't know if you can easily... Data table... I think a curve table is just a specialized data table. Which... is a little bit more annoying to get data out of, I think. Let me check. Does this say anywhere what it inherits from? Don't think it does. So yeah, that might be... Oh, let's not do that. So yeah, a curved table might be a little bit more annoying to deal with. Again, I mostly use them in conjunction with the gameplay ability system. So that might be... let's see, do we just have a curved table? Evaluate curved table row. Okay, so here you can put in a curved table asset. There we go. And there you can get the row name. And then when you have row found, you get the out X and Y. So let's see. I think this is the like in value, and then this is the out value, much like we did with get float value, right? I don't know why it's called in and out XY, because it's just a float. It's not like it's a vector. So I would have to assume that the in value is just like this axis, and then the out value is just this axis that corresponds to it. So you can very much still get them from a curve table. What kind of curve table object reference? So that is actually a thing that you... Oh, you can't promote those to variables. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that. And you can also programmatically try to get a certain row name by putting in like a variable or a value here, instead of just getting them from this drop-down menu if you really want to. So that is a good quick overview, hopefully, of how that would work. Are you using Common UI? I did set up Common UI at some point, and then I decided actually it's a little bit bothersome to deal with. It's kind of nice, but also at this point I'm like, I'll just fucking implement my own like stacking logic or whatever. So I kind of removed all the Common UI stuff out of my own project. I still like it, but I just was having some troubles with it. And when moving from one Unreal version to the other, like I changed to Unreal 5.4 a while ago from 5.1, all my Common UI stuff broke because it, for some reason, like unparented a bunch of my widgets because I didn't have the Common UI class anymore, because I guess it had like a different include path now or whatever. And I really don't look forward to having that happen again. So I was like, okay, not doing that. So that was a pretty big part of the consideration to not do that, because I am 1000% going to change over to Unreal 5.5 or 5.6 when they come out for their improved lighting systems and nanoskeleton meshes. So I'm gonna update this project file, which is always scary to do. And last time when I did that, Common UI broke. I didn't really like... Look, the issue with having things that are very like pre-implemented is that if they don't do what you want them to do, it's just as much work to bend them to your will as it is to just make things from scratch anyway. And with like Common UI, you have those like little in and out animations, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's... those are nice for prototyping, but those aren't the like slide in or the fade in animations that I actually want my menus to have. So at some point, I'm going to need to throw all that shit out anyway and replace them with my own inputs, like slide in animations and whatever. At which point, like a huge part of the benefit of them doesn't really work out anymore, unless there's something that I entirely missed about like overriding in and out animations on them, which there might very well be. This is just an example of the paradox of making such plugins. Is you want to create enough functionality that it is nice to use and saves you a lot of like redoing stuff, but you also don't want to overdevelop it in such a way that it becomes too specific. So that's what I'm also thinking about with like this inventory project, right? I'm making this into a plugin, and I want that plugin to be relatively generic, but still like do a lot of powerful stuff, like dealing with all the like object creation and like management of those objects, assigning them to like inventory slots and saving and loading, like all that stuff I want to implement within the inventory system. But I don't want to like overdevelop it to a point where like I'm deciding, okay, so the equipment component that we make has these equipment slots. Because if I make that in C++ and then I publish that and somebody else is like, yeah, but I actually don't want this slot, but I do want this slot. If it is a C++ class, for a lot of people, that's going to be a bit bothersome to change. So at that point, I think it is better to just not do that and let people implement their own systems around that and just give them like the framework of the inventory system that I have. So things that are fairly like game specific, I think plugins should, for the most part, steer away from, unless they are hyper specific, right? And that's kind of what I have with Common UI. Is it implements so much stuff where I'm like, yeah, but on a actual like game specific project that is not like a game jam game or whatever, you'd probably want to have like more customizability on all this to some extent, like the way that all gets dealt with. So, but maybe I'm going to like swallow my pride and reinstall Common UI at some point when I actually get to properly implementing all that inventory stuff, or all that UI stuff rather, because it turns out to be a much bigger task than I initially thought, and maybe Common UI is a better solution. I just haven't looked deeply enough into it. That's a very rambly way to explain that. Would you say I could add your way of stacking to my current inventory? So my way of stacking currently is fairly hard-coded, and personally I kind of like it that way, but that's for like this specific project, right? If you have a project that has UI that more modularly needs to stack on top of each other, a system like Common UI is a very good solution, or at least a starting place. But for me, it's like, if I go into my checkpoint menu, do I really need to like modularly stack these things on top of each other? Because the save game thing just opens up wherever the fuck it might be. Okay, well, let's do the settings one instead. That just opens up the settings menu, right? And the settings menu will always, when you return, I mean, I even have a return widget here, but it always really will open up your pause menu. And in this case, actually, it won't. And that's the way that I solve this, is when I create a... Fucking hell, where is it? Yeah, so when I create a settings menu widget, I can give in a class that it should open up when it gets closed again. So this checkpoint menu just gives a reference to its own class saying, hey, when this settings menu closes, open up this thing again. And this effectively, like if you just make a widget, like a new base widget that just inherits off of user widget, and you implement this code, just create settings menu as a function that you can like bind to buttons, and you just make the like the return widget populate like this with a explosion spawn variable, that effectively like creates a semi-stacking effect. But again, that is with a game that is fairly hard-coded in its menus, because a lot of my menuing is just like very generic, non-complicated menus. Just like this button goes to this menu, and then when you click on it, it goes back to the other menu. If you have like a bunch more extra menus that can layer on top of each other, if you're like making, a card game where you need to like go through menu to find like certain cards to add to your deck, and then like keeping track of that entire stack might be important and difficult, at which point a solution like Common UI might actually make a lot more sense than doing it the way I'm doing it. Oh, item stacking. Well, hopefully somebody had fun listening to me doing that entire spiel. Item stacking. So, I think so, yeah. Like I said earlier in the stream, I don't think fundamentally there's a lot of things that need to be changed about my inventory system to make it multiplayer compatible, aside from the fact that some things might need to be replicated, and the way that you replicate that, I honestly wouldn't try to take all of the system that exists and replicate it. I would look at when do other players need information from my inventory and try to like almost serialize that information to be able to send that over the network. In a similar way to, I don't know how far along you are. No, that's not your bad. I just ramble. But when we get to like fairly toward the end of my inventory series, we at some point get into like saving things, and then you're like, okay, we've got this metadata, and metadata can contain literally anything. So how in the world do we save metadata? And the way that I save metadata is I turn it into a string array. So every metadata object has two functions that implement through an interface, where it either has a get data from strings, which takes in a string array and sets the data based on like, okay, index 1 is always going to be the durability, index 2 is always going to be the like sharpness enchantment or whatever, and so on and so forth. And then we also have a get data in string form. So that just gets all those variables and converts them to strings and puts them into a string array. That is effectively just like high-level serialization of that data, so that it isn't specific to that object anymore, and it can be saved as a string and then loaded back into those objects when necessary. I think being able to turn the entire inventory into like an array of structs, for instance, where every struct just contains effectively the save data, to be honest, of your inventory. So you can probably cannibalize something of this from a save system for your inventory. Then you only need to send the data from those structs, and that is the thing that would need to be replicated. So that way you don't need to replicate the entire inventory system at all times. You can just like worry about that quote-unquote serialized data when it is actually relevant. I don't know if this is necessarily the best strategy, but that's probably the way that I'm looking at it. Because that way, the rest of the inventory system can effectively just still function as a single-player thing. It's just like when you can just make a network function, something like request player inventory, and that just serializes everything and sends it through. So then everybody can just like have their own individualized systems on their own clients, and when they get requested, it's just something that you added on top of it. You don't need to fundamentally change anything about your existing code. That's what comes into my mind at the moment anyway. If I think about this a little bit more, maybe my answer will change, but I think that is the way that I would look at it. So, I hope that was a more clear answer for the question that you were actually asking, instead of me talking about widgets for like 10 minutes. Anyway. Yeah, I'm going to call it here though, because I got the inventory stuff working in my project, which still blows my mind. That it went off without too much trouble. We did actually improve the inventory system code itself a little bit. Again, I'm going to go through and just like everywhere where it says save game plus whatever inventory. It doesn't need to do that. It doesn't. That should just be in well, whatever function creates the save object. Create a load save inventory, I think it is. That should just be in here so that we can just pass through the thing without inventory added to it, and only when it becomes relevant in here, because this is the only place where it is relevant, I believe. Oh, well, also in save, actually, it's also relevant. Let's see, but let's create inventory save data. Where does it actually save this? Because this is save generic inventory. Oh, it just does that on save inventory because this saves the individual thing. So here at the very end, it is like load inventory, and save inventory is save game to slot, user, save game name. Yeah. So I guess for this one, it makes sense to have a separate one, but everywhere else, like we're just creating this line before passing it into this function. So we probably should just have that in this function, but that's just like a bit of light refactoring that we need to do to like make this code a little bit of less of a pain in the ass. But we improved some things. We added some new functions that are nice to have. We now also have a way to just like get a reference to a save object, which is quite nice. Because I imagine that people are going to want that, even if I don't personally want to deal with that right now, because I would rather just use this. But having the option is nice. So we did a good bit of work here, and also my audio is now better. So sweet. I'm going to be back on Thursday, and we'll actually be doing some more art stuff. Today it was either going to be rigging or texturing, or this. Well, we ended up doing this, and actually had a lot of fun doing all this and hanging out with you people and whatever. So that's a good thing. But then on Thursday, I'll be back doing some more streaming, and then we're actually going to go back to creating the character that I have been working on, and we'll be either doing the rigging or the texturing. Not entirely sure yet. I'm probably just going to run a poll on the Discord again, a couple of hours before the stream starts, so that people can vote on what they want to see. If it's up to me, it's probably going to be rigging. But if people want to see texturing more, we'll do texturing more, or first, because both of them need to be done eventually anyway. And the order of those operations really does not matter. So you guys have a good one, and I will be back on Thursday, and with a video tomorrow, which I still need to make a thumbnail for, actually. Don't forget to do that. That would be bad. See ya.